Okay, so I've got a few questions here. How do I tell when I'm performing instead of being real?
How do I tell if I'm performing instead of being real?
I think I have like a start to the answer for this. Um, and it has to do with the feeling in your body. It's I notice that if I'm in a performance mode, my body tends to feel really like stiff and tight, and very like one-dimensional as far as feeling goes. I might feel like excitement and fast or like slow, but I won't feel a lot of like dynamic. I won't feel a lot of that like dynamic range of emotion or more complex feelings in my lower abdomen and stuff like that. Like that stuff is almost completely out of my awareness if I'm performing.
Like for me, if I'm performing, I tend to get a sense of heat, like energy raising to my head, the front of my face. I really don't have much like awareness of my lower body or the rest of my body in general. And a lot of the time, like frankly, there's just like a million different scripts playing out in my head, and it's like there's a lot of mental activity rather than just you know flowing and being in the moment and really feeling what's going on.
Yeah, definitely. You can watch people play out different ways of being, and they're always looking for a little hint of approval. They'll like hang around a little bit, they'll kind of look at you, they will, it'll feel like a show to someone who's aware enough to see the show. To someone that's not aware enough, they're not going to see the show. They're just going to take it as face value. But that's from the external viewer's perspective. From your own personal perspective, like you said, Dom and Nick, it's a feeling in the body, right? And there's also a care for an outcome. There's a concern for an outcome. There's a want for an outcome. So when you're performing, you are doing so to ultimately manipulate an outcome that you want. And I use manipulate lightly because we all manipulate each other all day long because we're human beings. That's what we do. But when you're doing it out of scarcity, when you're doing it out of fear, when you're doing it out of shame or embarrassment, judgment, whatever it may be, putting on that show feels it'll feel good to you, but it's a false good. It doesn't feel genuine. It doesn't feel that you can just put it out there and let it be. Somebody that's being real, they're not fixated, infatuated on an outcome. They're like, this is who I am. Here it is. I'm putting it on the table. Take it or leave it. I don't care either way. And that's when you're being real, is when you have removed, in a sense, that need or that want for any type of approval or outcome.
Yeah, that's,
Also, like
I was gonna say that's pretty key. Is just that is if you notice in yourself that you're looking for a laugh or you're looking for somebody to say, "Oh yeah," like that kind of stuff, looking for a specific type of response. Which is not to say that those things are bad because like learning to make people laugh is great. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But that's the difference between like a performance and just, sharing your genuine thoughts and feelings.
on an energetic level, it feels like if you're performing, then it's really a case of like, how am I managing my energy? How am I trying to contort myself or the way other people are going to experience me? And then on the other side of it is, are we actually taking in their energy? Are we actually having a conversation and energetic interaction? If you're performing, it's kind of like I'm putting this energy out there in a certain way, and I'm looking at your reactions to see if you're liking them and how do I next, manipulate my own energy to manipulate yours rather than, okay, this is my energy. What's your energy? How does that make me feel? And then just bouncing back and forth that way. And it's a lot more work. Like
Yeah,
just being real is just showing who you are, right?
yeah, the real versus the fake, it's a give and receive on the when it's being real. When it's fake, it's a push and very little intake, but very much a push, like you're saying. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, energetically, that's totally what it feels like. It feels weird.
Yeah, it might actually be easier to detect after the fact too. It's like in the moment of like a social setting or whatever, it's pretty easy to get lost in your own sauce of trying to, make people laugh or whatever it is. But then like afterwards, I'll notice if I'm in like a weird performing mode afterwards, I'll feel just like depleted, like empty, like maybe a little resentful of, the situation that I was in because, I wasn't letting the energetic, emotional information in myself really come out and not really receiving that from other people because there's just this weird mask program lodged in
Yeah.
stopping that.
Like I felt when I've been performing in the past and I'm like mostly reformed, I hope. It's like there's a lot of work and then not a lot of juice afterwards. Like it's
Mhm.
you said that you do a lot of work and then people just drift away having laughed a little bit or gone like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. But anyway, and then talk to someone else versus when you're being real or even having someone perform at you because it is at you, not like to you most of the time. It's just like you're listening, you're going like, very nice, but like, can I just go back to talking about whatever with these guys because we're actually having something and it feels very isolating, like on both sides of the equation.
I'll add another piece to this too is, like, especially if you aren't sure what performance feels like, intentionally perform. Like intentionally try to put on an act, like dance like a monkey, try to put on a voice, some kind of actor's voice or something like that, so that you can feel that performance, and then feel the difference. It kind of give you a little bit more of a set point of the difference between what a performance is going to like feel like inside your body to try to take on something else, then, fall back into yourself afterwards.
Mm. Yeah, it might be easier to notice in other people too. Like if someone else is doing something that gives you a little bit of the ick, and you're like you get that gut feeling of like not really sure about their motivations, right? You can kind of like empathize with that a little bit, take it on for yourself, and then notice like next time you go out and you're find yourself in a social engagement, whatever it is, putting on that performance, you'll feel that ick reflected in other people. You'll feel it in yourself, it's like a little gut level dissatisfaction that just permeates everything. And it's kind of gross.
I feel like that ick is just like such a great indicator, like you're getting it internally or like you can see the ick on their face. It's like, oh yeah, maybe something's off here. I kind of feel like, when you're watching a movie and if the actors are halfway competent, you're just watching people doing stuff. And then when you see someone who is a bad actor, it's kind of the same as performance in this case. You just get someone who's like, oh, it's clearly someone who's trying to be like really like animated or like, oh, I'm really sad now. It's just like, yeah, it feels ick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like cringy, which can be really
Yeah.
fun, right? Like we can like I've had some friends that are really good at like performance arts and clowning and stuff like that, and like they can be hilarious. But it's not like a personal conversation. It's just a game. Like you're like playing, it's like hanging around them is like constantly playing a game. But like what does the real person need and want or care about? I have no idea. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, it can be like fun to be around, but like there's a difference between, okay, this is the guy I play games with. This is the guy who like I can just be real with, and I know which one I'd choose like every time.
Mhm.
Yep. What's next,
Right.
Steven?
Well, I would say, what are some signs that I'm hiding a truth that I actually need to be sharing?
A good
Okay.
question.
What are some signs that you're hiding a truth that
Yep.
you should be sharing?
I'm gonna say, like, I'll start it off again with this, just like if you're feeling a lot of just physical discomfort, like twisted guts, like pain in the chest, like a really tight throat, tight throat, tight jaw, really nervous around people. And then you kind of maybe you get really frustrated. Like if you go home, you get really frustrated and you're confused a lot. Those are some pretty like basic indicators.
Yeah, like for me, again, there's that kind of build up and pressure, like that internal sensation of like an energy building, like in the gut and like in the jaw and throat, like Nick says, it's energetically like there's something wanting to come out, and if you constrict it, it will start to build up. Um, and at first I would have people say, like, is there something you want to say, or like, is there like what's up? And I wasn't really conscious of it. And the more it happens now, it's like, oh, there's something building up. What is it? And sometimes the people are asking me, like, what is it you aren't saying, or what is it that needs to be said, or what's going on? Like sometimes still that's like a cue that, oh, maybe there is something I'm not consciously aware of. But you know, usually when we're hiding it, we're not hiding it very well. So yeah, other people's feedback can really help on that.
Yeah, so you're going to feel an internal fight as well. There's going to be an internal battle, and the physical things that you guys have already talked about, the jaw, the throat, the tightening down through the center of the body. You'll even see like hunched in kind of behaviors, body language like that. Um, there's anxiety that's going to be building. There's going to be nervousness. Ultimately will lead to frustration. So yeah, those are indicators that you're not being honest with whoever's in front of you, or even with yourself about what you really need to do. It'll just sit inside of you and just fester and fester and fester. And eventually it's gonna come out at some point. It's going to. You can't keep that stuff locked away. People that do to some success get old very quick, slowly die over time. They'll even kind of get gray. It's really freaky to see what happens physically to the body for people that aren't open and sharing like that. So yeah, the biggest thing is definitely going to be the body contortions and the body language and the features changing and shifting, that really tight voice, and then just that internal fight that you've got going on that you feel you should be sharing, but you're definitely not.
Just want to say as well, it's not always just about like having one big thing that you're not saying. Like a lot of times, like for me personally, like it's been a constant battle to like share more of what I'm experiencing, to not filter everything quite as much, like the performance we were just talking about. And, you know, I'm still kind of working through some of that myself, that being in that spot of like, oh, there is a little bit I'm holding back, or not saying everything to the extent I could, like same effect, just not always as dramatic.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Tom. It's usually not one thing, it's many things typically.
Yeah,
Yeah, like a pattern of behavior.
yeah, that's like a long-term killer. Like you just like slowly boil because it's like all these little things you don't say over time. And
Yeah, the thing that comes to mind is also like permission to be dissatisfied. Um, because if you're in an environment that isn't inherently satisfying to you and you've been kind of like blocking that discomfort out, like maybe something in your being wants to change your job, wants to change a relationship, and you've been kind of blinding yourself to the discomfort of your current job or current relationship, right? Kind of the first step is just letting yourself be uncomfortable as fuck and like come to grips with that all these little things do in fact bug you on some level. And then a lot of times just being present in that agitation creates enough like energy in the system to get clarity on, oh, I need to change my job. Oh, I need to change my relationship. Right? Because it might not be very visible at first.
It kind of makes me think of that guy who's like, I'm fine, I'm okay, I'm all
Yeah.
right. And then the one day you're like, oh, how are you? And he's like, I'm okay. I'm not okay. I'm not fucking okay. Like this is like, and you know, it all just comes spelling out. But versus the guy who's like, you know, not dumping all this stuff on you, but just able to talk about it and go like, yeah, I've got a couple of things going on, you know, whatever it is.
Mhm.
That's another good point too, is if a lot of people, if like semi-regularly or very regularly, people are saying like, "Are you okay? Like, do you need something?" Pretty good sign.
Yeah, I mean the word fine, right? That's an acronym, right? Freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Oh, I've never heard that before. I love that.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah, fine. Freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so that happens for sure when we're not sharing our truths. Definitely.
Got it could be same category or different if something else jumps out.
And let's jump ahead to the next category and talk a little bit about vulnerability. How do I share my uncertainty so that it connects me more to others instead of attracting, let's say, pity or that downer vibe?
Mm.
How do I, sorry, say that again? How do I,
Well, sometimes when I share vulnerability, there's collaboration and I feel seen, revealed, more connected. And sometimes I just get pity or there's like a downer vibe to the group.
so how do I share what I'm feeling and be vulnerable and connect to people rather than like be pitied?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Like attacked. Hmm.
One of the
So to
big,
me,
okay,
go
yeah.
ahead. Yeah, go for it.
One of the biggest things that jumps out for me is to whatever degree you can is like know what you're asking for. So like just like dumping, discomfort and complaints can definitely bring a big downer vibe to a group. And if at the very least you can say, I don't know what I want, can you help me figure out what I want? You're at least bringing in some agency. And that brings a certain sense of like possibility and hope, and there's a lighter energy there to whatever struggle you're going through.
Yeah, it definitely feels to me like, you know, for a lot of people, vulnerability or like sharing what they're feeling is it's not really what I understand as vulnerability. It's, you know, and I get it. It feels more like, oh, I'm going to wallow in whatever like crap I'm feeling, and I'm gonna like share it with you, and I'm gonna drag you down in there with me. And you know, I've done that because sometimes when you're like super heavy, like it feels so good just to like misery loves company, right? But if we're like really sharing vulnerably, like without that intent of bringing people down or and like imprinting what we're feeling on other people, just sharing and look, I just want to get this off my chest, or this is what I'm experiencing. You know, you should feel lighter afterwards. And yeah, I've definitely had a good wallow myself a few times. But in general, like think about why you're sharing it. Like, what is your purpose? Like, are you trying to just stay miserable, or are you actually, sharing, just telling people what's going on? And there's a definite difference.
Yeah, and just some groups of people that like wallowing in it is how they bond,
Mm.
right? Is like kind of a classic example would be like talking shit about the boss in the break room, like standing around the water cooler, talking about, how the system's rigged and everything's right. Like there's a certain amount of like bonding that happens there, but um I'm assuming like we're talking about bringing vulnerability to like friendships, relationships where it's maybe not the norm. Um, so like, yeah, just like you guys are saying, bringing that agency so actually what your vulnerability is serving, right?
Yeah, it's super important when it comes to being vulnerable and expressing that. Pick the right people. Because there are people that they they can't give you what you're looking for. They can't support you in the way that you need to be supported. So, if you're down and you're heavy with whatever's going on, don't go looking for the next down heavy person to get vulnerable with. Start looking for somebody that's vibrating much higher so that you can express how down you are, and then let that person hear you and then lift you to a much better place. Because like Dom said, misery loves company. And if we wallow and we complain and we bitch and we moan with people that are just like us, who don't have, you know, the next level view above where we are, well, you're gonna get pity because everybody is stuck in the same place. And so, when it comes to vulnerability and expressing stuff, especially if it's really painful stuff, make sure that you're really picking the right people to go to really, really help you and stack the odds in your favor of receiving not pity, but praise, compassion, love, appreciation, and really, really, really solid guidance. So, like when I go through shit, when I have stuff that I need to be vulnerable about, I'm looking for those high frequency people because I know when I go to them, that frequency isn't going to drop on them because they're so much above where I am. And then they pull me up with them. So it's really, really nice. And that's the way I view handling this question that was asked about keeping yourself from being pitied or being made to feel worse, or not even feeling like you're heard when you're in a vulnerable place. And when you are in a vulnerable place and you truly need help, and this is extremely hard to do, you need to know what you need, and you need to tell the person that you're being vulnerable with what you need and how you need it. And that's extremely difficult to do when you're stuck in your emotional shit, because it's like you have to separate from it. You have to say, what do I need right now? What does it look like? What are the words? What are the feelings? And you need to tell that person exactly how to do it. And then you need to go back into your shit so you can receive it and feel good. And that is not an easy skill set to develop. It takes a lot of practice and time.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like there are so many people, like when you talk specifically about high vibrational people who can actually pull you up and not just sing down in there with you. Like I think of so many people over the years, and I've been the guy myself where people have come to you with a problem and then, or they're heavy, they're sad, and then people will just go straight down to that same energetic place. And then they'll be saying stuff like, oh, cheer up, it could be worse. And they're trying, but they're actually right there in there with you. And it's a real difference from just being able to like find people who can just hold that space for you and just go, hey, yeah, like I feel you, man. It sucks. But
Yeah, it's like their vibrational space is big enough to handle what you got going on, and they'll go there with you to say, hey, I'm here for you, but they're not going to stay there with you. They're going to pull you up. They're going to want you to come up and hang out with the level that they're operating at. And they will continually bounce down occasionally to meet you and bring you up, but they're not going to stay down there with you. And that's where, like Nick and Alex were saying, I think you were too, Dom, is like the wallowing that happens, the commiserating of the misery, so to speak. And it's just like, yeah, that's not what you want when you're being vulnerable.
There's something I want to add to the wallowing thing is this. I know that I've been like very guilty of this, is the humility required to ask for help from somebody who can actually help you. It's yeah.
That is not easy at all. Especially for us as men, asking for help. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
we would rather eat a bullet, honestly.
Or suffer much longer. Yeah.
Or just suffer till the end of time. Because saying I need help. But we see that with more emotionally insecure men, more emotionally secure guy, or more emotionally aware. I don't know if insecure is a correct word, but correct words to be using, but someone that has some level of awareness about himself and other men, and he's had potentially some good interactions with men. It's easier for him to go and ask for help. But the guy that hasn't, he hasn't had a good relationship with his mother or his father, who the hell does he go to? Who does he trust? And a lot of times that's no one. And that's not a good place to be. But if you've had good, vulnerable experiences with men and women, mother and father, then yeah, seek those people out.
I feel like you're making a really good point about the different kinds of emotional, like sensitivity or awareness or intelligence or resilience, whatever you want to call it. Like I feel if any of you guys were going through something and you came to me, like, or vice versa, that would be like pretty much expected, and it wouldn't be seen as a sign of weakness.
Totally.
I know plenty of guys who would just be sitting there going, like, if I go and show that I'm feeling emotionally, like, vulnerable, affected, it's going to say something about me as a person, and that's a horrible place to be in. And then we also get the other side of that, which is guys who have gone right into their feelings and they've been doing a lot of work on like feeling their emotions, or maybe they're just naturally like that. And then, I kind of feel like when we're talking about vulnerability, which is what the question was originally about, there's vulnerability in talking about, hey, I'm going through this thing and I'm suffering. It's hurting me and I either need help or I just need someone to listen, versus like, oh, I'm experiencing this thing and it's kind of taking me over, and you're really losing yourself in it. And yeah, that's the kind of vulnerability I feel where you either get that kind of pity or revulsion where it's not being handled. There's no even intent to handle it, because like I absolutely have times where I've got the intention to handle an emotion and I am not, like I'm falling apart, right? But the intent is to like do something with it, to work through it, to get somewhere else, rather than just drag people down to suffer with me, because no one wants to hang around with that guy. Yeah. Even they feel bad for him, right? But that's where that sense of pity comes in, rather than that sense of camaraderie and like, okay, we got this. Let's do this.
Yeah. This is a good segue. Dom, one of your guys asked a question. So
Yeah, one of those questions was how to approach being vulnerable with a partner. You know, a lot of guys are told that they need to be more vulnerable, they need to open up, and then they do, and all of that comes right out. The dam breaks, everything comes out that they've been holding on for years. The woman can't hold that. Maybe the next day she says, "Oh, we're done. We're breaking up now." How do you avoid that?
Depends on your partner. You know, if you're in a sense like just trauma dumping shit on somebody, yeah, that's not going to go too well. But if you can, people, things happen and people get hurt, and a lot of things come out sometimes. But a woman can handle a lot of emotion. That's her domain. She's far better at it than we'll ever be. And so that's why we do dump all this stuff out, because we're not good at letting go of it, just naturally, like women are. However, if she's a solid woman, she's going to be able to handle that. And then the other thing is, and this is going to sound weird, as you're going through your own shit in the moment, can you still contain her with you, ground yourself as best you can in that experience? Not an easy task. Emotions are, a raw emotion it's miserable. But can you still contain her so that she feels somewhat safe while you're going through your own shit, which is a huge ask for you, because that is not an easy thing to do. And when we're in it, and that is the way it is. If somebody's going to run away after something like that, then I have to question what were their intentions to begin with, to be with you. Because if you're truly with somebody that cares about you, you're gonna be through with that person thick and thin. You're not gonna run away from them. So when that type of experience happens, it's because the woman literally can't handle her own emotions, and now you're dumping all of her stuff, all your stuff on her, and she can't handle herself. Now she has to handle you, and she gets afraid and runs away. I mean, that is a trauma in and of itself on her part. A healthy woman wouldn't do that. She'd be able to handle it and be in that space with you, and you'd be good to go. So that's the way I view it, and that's the way I've seen things go down. And the women that do run away, again, they don't have the capacity to handle themselves, let alone when a guy starts dumping all his stuff out.
Yeah, I'd say like I'd add to that is, like like levels of emotional maturity. It's just like a woman who's more comfortable being like stable, understanding. She understands her emotions, how to move through those emotions. She understands that as a dude, you're going to have emotions that you don't always know how to process. But like, again, if you can stay, like, I think your responsibility as a dude, as much as possible, like Dave said, is just like stay grounded. Because you don't want to get so reactive that you're like gonna scare, you're gonna scare your girlfriend or your wife or whoever you're seeing away. Like as a dude, you're like bigger and scarier than she is. So like if your emotions come with a whole lot of like aggression and like reactivity, that can be pretty hard for women to process. But if you're able to just like sit on your own, like stand on your own 2 feet and just start to feel the intensity of your emotion, like an emotionally mature woman will like very happily like wrap her arms around you, like soothe you, ask what you need, like offer a lot of like gentle, whatever for all this tender bits up here, that we as men can be a little bit more like reactive to, I think, because we generally want to be doing like the harder stuff, the more solid stuff. Yeah, finding a balance, I think that I'm trying to say, like finding a balance in emotional maturity. Is that there are women, like I've met a lot of women who are less emotionally mature and they just want to be like, they just want to be like the baby girl with daddy, and they want to be super reactive, and you bring any emotion to them and they're just like, I don't know what to do with this. Freak out, run away. But then like an emotionally mature woman who's probably like more marriage material, like who's the kind of woman you can like actually like live life with side by side, probably going to be as comfortable, at least as comfortable as you are, right? As a dude, being able to go through that intensity, go through that complexity.
Just want to add something to all of that, like in a slightly different direction, which is like, when we're being asked to be vulnerable or to show what we're feeling, a lot of the time it's not necessarily a case of, okay, come trauma dump on me. It's like they're asking for like more of a sense of what you're actually feeling. So perhaps if you're always, talking about stuff and everything's very analytical and emotionless, where you're not letting like what you're feeling shine through, you're going to get that sense of like a disconnection. Whereas, if I'm talking to someone who's emotionally aware, man or woman, like you're going to get a sense of what they're feeling, and hopefully a sense of what I'm feeling and experiencing is going to be like radiating through my body, rather than just like walling off and going like, yeah, today I did this, I went to the shops and I did this, and there's no energy, there's no feeling, there's no aliveness. So a lot of the time what we're asking for, or what people are asking for with vulnerability, is more just a sense of who you are, a sense of that feeling, that emotion, rather than, okay, now cry for me. Like it's, sometimes, sure, absolutely, people, there's nothing wrong with like having that good cry if you haven't had it before, but it's not like I want you to cry for me every single time something bad happens. I don't want you to be weepy and emotional. It's not that. It's like, can you feel your feelings with me?
I'd say there's one more thing I'll add to this, and it parallels like one of the questions that was asked earlier, is that like knowing what you want, like why are you expressing yourself, like why are you, like, is pretty important. Um, like I've seen the trauma dumping thing is usually there's some subconscious intention to try to manipulate, in a and not in like the help, not in like a reasonable good way, but in like the just like, like trying to get somebody to do something without explicitly naming it and being clear about it. Um, Whereas like when you're actually wanting help from your girlfriend and you're like, or partner or wife, like you're gonna feel a little confused and maybe like a little bit like emotionally turbulent, but there's gonna be like a lightness. There's gonna be like a lightness in the body that is looking for resolution. It's also seeing her as an ally. You kind of assume she's an ally. You assume she wants to help you. You assume she cares about you. And like all of those assumptions actually have you kind of express more the need that you have and ask for what you need in a cleaner way. To just express the other side of that really quickly is like if you go looking at her like she's the devil, she's the enemy, and then you try to like play that out like some kind of like game in your head, like she will play that out with you. Like women are such strong mirrors. Like if you see her as the devil, like this bad terrible person that's trying to fuck you over, and then you're trying to like emotionally dump, or like you're seeing the world that way, like she will match that, and it can be pretty intense. But if you like, even if you have like a problem with your boss or a problem with her, and you see her as your ally, you see her as like a good, loving, caring, supportive wife or girlfriend or lover, like she will treat you the way you want her to treat you or you see her.
Yeah, that's really, really well said. I kind of want to bring what Dave said and what you said together, which is like, a lot of the time when we're going through something or someone's asking us to be vulnerable or we want some kind of emotional fulfillment, for a lot of guys, especially ones who struggle with vulnerability, is not necessarily even seeing someone as evil. It's just, oh, if I express my emotions, I've been punished for it, or I've been made to feel like stupid or weak or whatever it is before. And obviously it's a lot harder to share how we're feeling if we have that kind of experience. And if we're going through life, or through a relationship, expressing that kind of lack of safety around our own emotions, in that sense of, if I feel this, I don't feel safe, it's going to be very hard for people to feel like emotionally safe around you as well. It's just a reflection of what's going on internally. So it's not an easy thing to do, but like learning to feel safe with and handle your own emotions is like, it's going to help you be vulnerable with other people, but at the same time, and it's going to help you feel better being yourself, which, let's face it, is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, there's a kind of a second part to this question. How do you open up when a woman asks you to open up about your emotions? How do you open up, even though you're like disconnected from them usually? Like, how do you get familiar with opening up, showing that vulnerability when you're maybe normally clueless to them?
Well, even women are clueless to a lot of emotion. I've worked with some women recently that could not define emotion. So they couldn't open up because they didn't know what they were feeling ultimately. It was like, I feel like this, I kind of feel like that. I'm like, oh, okay. So that's some grief, that's some shame, that's some apathy. Oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense now, right? So, how do you do it if you don't know? Well, you have to educate yourself, right? There there are countless things online that you could look up and say, hey, what, just look up the emotional scale, right? There's your primary kind of like 9 emotions or whatever it is, and then like 30 or 40 words underneath each one of those emotions that describes that emotion. And as you start to understand the emotion itself by all of these other experiences under it, then you're able to open up. You're like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I'm feeling a little, and it doesn't have to be complex and wizardly like, right? It's just like, yeah, I'm feeling, it can be as simple as, I'm just feeling heavy. Okay, tell me about the heaviness. Oh, well, it feels kind of sad. Oh, okay, so now we got sadness, right?
Mhm.
And so we can kind of start that way. If you don't know what an emotion is, or you don't even know how to define it, I either feel heavy or I feel light, or I'm moving from heavier to lighter, or I'm moving from lighter to heavier. That is like, it doesn't get any more fundamental than that. But then, learning about apathy, grief, fear, lust, anger, pride, courage, acceptance, and peace, learning about those things and all the subcategories underneath of that allows you to have a much more emotionally intelligent conversation around what you're really feeling. And that gives you the confidence to open up and say, yeah, I'm feeling this, 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 and this, and this. And people are like, whoa, oh, okay, yeah, okay, I can see that. And so, we talk about women's capabilities to do this stuff naturally and better than men, which is for the most part true. However, women don't even have the dialogue to talk about their emotions in the depth that we can do as coaches, because we study this stuff intensely. For a person that hasn't studied this stuff intensely, just keep it as simple as possible, and light, heavy, heavy, light, those basic emotions that I just rattled off: apathy, grief, fear, lust, anger, pride, courage, acceptance, and peace. That's the emotional scale. Like, if you just did nothing other than light and heavy in that emotional scale, that's all anyone needs to hear from you to understand what you're going through, and it gives you the confidence to open up and say, this is where I'm at.
Mhm.
I'll add to that too, is I like what you're saying about like there's a huge difference between emotional literacy and like emotional depth, like a depth of emotional experience.
Mhm.
And like I think a lot of like women have like they're very comfortable being in a deep emotional experience, like way more than than I am as a dude for sure. Like I'm always trying to like try to skirt the top. Like I'll dive in a little bit, but like I'm rarely going too far below the surface. But I can be quite emotionally literate because I've studied this stuff for a long time. And women in general, I don't think are that emotionally literate, like the ones that study it for sure. But like in general, they just have a deeper emotional experience and they're more comfortable with that deep emotional experience. Um, and so like sometimes I find that I really like what Dave's saying with like just making it simple. It's just like you feel lighter, you feel heavier. And also most of the time women just want to be able to feel that you're feeling something. So it's like if you are like if you have emotions and they are kind of like they can be felt at the edge of your body, at the edge of your awareness, and she can feel you, she's going to kind of know you're there emotionally. And that communication is already happening. Like just eye contact, it's already happening. Just being in the room together, it's already happening. And that can actually answer that question, or it can be the answer to like, like that inquiry from women, especially who are wanting to like understand you on a deeper emotional level, is just allowing yourself to feel it's just a little bit more. And it doesn't have to be a lot. Like you don't have to go into these like deep emotional swells like women will, but like as long as there's like a tickle on the edge of your skin, on your throat, in your chest, in your, in your balls as a dude, and like you can actually just feel that moving in your body a little bit, feel her feel that, like that'll often be enough.
Yeah, I think like you don't need to be literate at all in it. Like especially if you're super closed off and don't have any idea of what your internal experience is like. You might just have a feeling of something's off, right? And that's a great place to start. And then get more curious.
Mhm.
Like ask, oh, what is it like? Like, does this feel like a color? Does this feel like a shape? Does it feel rough? Does it feel right? And just kind of get out of like you want to be experiencing the emotion, but you don't want to be totally swallowed up by it. But so if you can separate yourself from that a little bit with some curiosity, start to inquire, like, because at the end of the day, emotions are just like feeling collections in the body, like little motivations, right? Maybe you have a feeling like you want to run and hide, and after a while, you start to recognize that's fear. Cool, right? But it might just start with a little bit of a motivation. It might start with a little bit of a like maybe a nausea in the belly, right? Something like that. So just get curious, get in contact, take it slow. You don't have to you don't have to go into total ego death to get right with what you're feeling. You could just touch it a little bit. Oh, and most women, most people in general are just looking to uh, like for emotional safety, just looking to see that you can touch what you're feeling and that it's revealed.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point that emotional literacy and emotional depth, two very, very different things. And you know, if you listen to most people talking about their emotions, people will have perfectly satisfactory conversations on a purely intellectual level about how they're feeling, and that
Envy.
will satisfy them. Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh yeah, like I'm feeling really sad because I've got this thing going on, and or I'm really stressed about that. And I'll go into that without ever touching the emotions. And a lot of the time that's going to be enough for people, but realistically, like how do you get in touch with your emotions when you're disconnected from them is like the $1 million question. It's if we're disconnected from them, like why? Like what are we running from? What is it we're not wanting to feel? And like Alex was saying, you just have that conceptual sense of, oh yeah, I feel like I need to run away from something, or I want to kind of hide, or I want to go crawl up in bed. It's like, okay, well, what's the physical sensation of that? Like what is the named emotion, whether it's like anxiety or sadness or grief or whatever it might be. Turns out like recently, like a couple of years ago, I started discovering that I actually had a very bad relationship with positive emotions, and I didn't really know what it was like to be like joyful or happy. And I don't know how that fucking manifested, but learning to identify and feel joy in my body was kind of a big deal for me, actually. Yeah, just as much as getting comfortable with the other ones. So yeah, you don't need to be incredibly literate or go super deep, but you know, depth over literacy any day of the week.
Hmm.
But you do need to know how to read.
I made it this far. Questions. I know how to read. So what does that say? All right. So kind of getting into more of the, like we talked a little bit about like being able to ground your own emotions. Um, what like how do you know if you're actually grounded versus just thinking about it? Right? We talk about kind of grounding and it, a lot of times it doesn't feel like we have a very clear definition. Right? So what are some things, and we can start with like emotional groundedness and then kind of work from there. What are some things that tell you that you're emotionally grounded?
You want to do emotional and you want to do physical, or just emotional?
I would say start with emotional because that's, we were talking about vulnerability. All right. So guys with some bottled up emotions might want to hear about that, but if it, expands, like that's great.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, emotionally, if you're emotionally grounded, you're an emotionally ungrounded, we'll just start with an emotionally ungrounded guy. His emotional cycle is going to go like this: highs, lows, big swings, unregulated, kind of a mess. And we all know there's going to be drama in there. We all know this guy. A guy who's emotionally grounded, his sine wave is going to be like this, much smaller. There's going to be, smaller, a smaller distance between the highs and the lows of his emotional experience. It's not that he can't go to the extremes. He definitely can. He just resides back in the middle more, always. He doesn't have to hit the rock bottom and stay there, and he doesn't have to shoot to the peak and stay there and then go back down. What he's doing is he can hit those, but he chooses to stay right here in the middle, being more emotionally grounded, less emotionally erratic, more conscious of his emotional feeling, the way that he expresses his emotion. He's not wild about it. It's just more of a matter of fact. Like, yeah, I'm feeling sad today. Not, oh my God, I'm feeling sad. Like, ugh, like it's just killing me. You don't understand. Like that is emotionally ungrounded. The guy that's like, yeah, I'm fucking hurting today. It really, really sucks. That guy's different. You're like, oh, really? What's going on? Tell me about it. Because I know it now. I'm not going to get drug into some fucking drama. Like I'm like, oh, okay, this is an emotionally safe space for me to engage with this person so that I can help them. It makes the person there to help you or around you, it makes them feel very, very safe. And it's an incredibly attractive experience, not just for women, but it's good for men too. Like an emotionally dramatic and out of control man, ugh, like that's the worst.
Mhm.
Yeah. When it comes to the physical grounding, right? Do you feel weight in your body? Do you feel connected to the surface you're standing on, sitting on, laying on? Do you feel like there's a gravity to you? Do you feel like you're racing to the next thing? Or do you feel like you're just this force just slowly moving forward, stuck to the ground? not being blown this way or that way. You're not wavering. You're just like, here's my intention. And over time, I'm just going to swallow you whole because this is my reality. This is, and I don't want to say swallow you whole and that be looked at as a negative. I'm saying that in, hey, I'm so weighted and grounded and in control of what's going on, you naturally want to come into my experience, and I swallow you within my own experience as a man. And that is very comfortable and attractive to women for sure. So when you see really grounded guys, they're not talking fast, they're not moving fast. If they do move fast, it is very grounded in the way they do it. But it's just like this force that engulfs everything that is around it. And it doesn't feel scary. It doesn't feel erratic. It just feels safe and solid and comfortable.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot about taking guys out approaching. It's like the first, like a lot of dudes will want to build like the skill of like approaching and like I want to learn how to get a girl's number. It's like that's not the actually building. The skill we're building is emotional flexibility, right? So not getting ahead of yourself, like actually slowing down enough to where like maybe you get rejected, maybe you get validated, maybe whatever happens, right? But slow down enough to still feel that and move at that pace rather than trying to over control from the analytical mind, get ahead of yourself. And a lot of times when guys get stuck in that over analytical control mode, they just lose awareness, like awareness of the body, awareness of the space, awareness of the other people, right? And like bringing in that awareness will naturally slow them down to that grounded spot.
I like what you're saying about the like the slowdown and the like swallowing, like swallowing up. There's another word for that, which is just like incorporating. Like incorporating, like if I'm gonna like date a girl, I'm incorporating her into my life. I'm incorporating her into my agenda, what I'm building, almost like this is my business of my life of what I'm building, and I'm incorporating her. We're incorporating each other into each other's lives, that kind of thing. So we're kind of like oftentimes like we're swallowing each other up. It's a really good metaphor. And I like I want to I want to add one more piece, and that is that like the slowdown and the like taking your time and really feeling everything out and like taking everything in, feeling the just like the body take its time processing the emotions, right? Like the emotional grounding, the physical grounding. It's just like I don't need to rush anything because I'm feeling this emotion. I don't need to like erratically like speak. I don't need to like throw it all off. I just know that like emotions are going to be in my body. They're going to take their time to process. Like the emotional intuitive mind has a different way of processing. It takes its time. It takes in factors and pieces and context. And as it processes, it'll all just work out. I'll feel heavy one day. I'll feel lighter another. Sometimes talking about it helps. But there's also like there's another piece with the attraction, and that is the like the mystery is that like the guys who I know who are like super emotionally erratic, um, they're constantly in conversations. They have a lot, like they have a lot going on, but they don't really have a gravity to them. And so I don't see women kind of like seeking out more of like, hey, what else is going on? Because they're constantly just like off gassing all this stuff going on. You already know it's all there at the surface, which I think in a way can feel kind of like nice and safe and easy, but they don't really draw anybody in. Whereas like taking your time as a guy, like you're going through your process, you're handled, creates a really nice air of mystery. And so people end up being curious. There's a gravity there. They end up drawing in, especially women are drawn in, and they feel like they don't fully understand you because you're making decisions, you're making choices that are like in solidarity yours. Like they're fully yours. They're fully centered here in your being, and moving out from that place. And women love to try to like play with that. And if they can't, then they trust that solid man is just like walking. Like I really like that, just like slow walking through the world. And he's as stable and reliable as a tree, right? She can just go hang on him. She can be supported by him. Is gonna want to, like shine and play and offer all of her like beautiful, feminine gifts to that solid foundation.
Yeah, like there's a word you use there, like, and Dave, I think you alluded to it too, which is like gravity. And I know that can sound like, oh yeah, there's gravity to a situation. Sometimes it sounds like it's serious and it's not a lot of fun, but like, yeah, like someone with weight to them, like when their words like carry weight, like if you're not conscious of whether you're grounded or not, you can have a look at the people around you and see, like, are they grounded? Are they not grounded? Is there a weight to what they're doing? Does the world revolve around them? Or are they just constantly like trying to fit in, and like, are they being blown everywhere, like you were saying? It's, there was a time where I was like really unconscious of my own like internal experience. And at some point, people were like constantly telling me, like, hey, like you're super grounded. And I had no concept of what that meant at all. But like the experience, when I look at people who are grounded, or if I look at, when I'm feeling grounded myself, there's a solidity, there's like that slowness you were talking about, that kind of weight. There's a sense of like having time and just like not being rushed, that the world is like revolving around me, and that the world is kind of like molding itself to fit into my reality, rather than, oh my God, like this thing happened, oh, I'm being affected in this way. And it's, think of someone who's just always calm, always relaxed, nothing really phases them. They might experience like the exact same level of emotion as the guy next to them, and instead of like breaking down in tears or running away or just like, you know jumping around, like waving his hands in the air, he's like, okay, this is happening, I'm going to handle it. Or might crack a smile and go like, yeah, I feel it was really good. um and the people you want to hang around, like people who have that grounding effect on your nervous system, are going to calm you down. Like people will seek them out, like, like Dave was saying, women will seek them out because it feels like safe to be around them. Other guys will seek you out because they just feel safer and steadier around you. And you think about electricity, like a grounded electrical current, that can be really, really strong and it's super useful. And you have a tiny bit of electricity that's completely ungrounded and flying around. You've got like this live wire cable, even if it's not carrying the same level of current, it's dangerous. Like no one wants to be around that. It's that weight, that steadiness. And if you can feel the difference in yourself when you're calm, nothing's really affecting you, even though you're experiencing it. Very different from just shutting off your emotions, versus every little thing sets you off, good or bad. And it's just a different experience. So yeah, like you can learn to recognize it for sure.
The other thing I want to emphasize is something you just said, Dom, which is that like there is a big difference between like walling off and stilling and stiffening the body, and not taking in enough information that like you're not necessarily grounded, you're just not taking in any information. Is very different than you're taking in all the information, right? You're still feeling the environment, you're still flowing, you're still feeling the emotional tones of your interactions. You're just allowing that to like flow and move in your body, and without these big expressions, right? It just like kind of builds up, and it builds more of a density than a like a dancing fair, like than a fairy dancing. Yeah. No offense to the fairies out there. Ooh, I like this one. What's a safe first step to let out bottled up anger?
Oh,
Hmm.
say for who?
Hmm.
I think one of the biggest things, I mean, definitely can get some coaching, right? Because then we can contain it all. We've got a place with trained with professionals. We're experienced with anger. We're experienced with like letting anger out, letting it not be a big deal, all that kind of stuff. But I also know that when you're just wanting to figure out what you can do yourself, like just find out whether you're withholding anger because of shame or you're afraid to break stuff, you're afraid to hurt stuff like that kind of thing. Like knowing why you withhold your anger is a pretty big factor in how it's going to help. So for instance, I know that if I'm feeling like anger is a shameful experience, I might just go in my car, go on a little road trip and just give myself a chance to just yell and scream and just say shit. I might journal. I might just say the absolute nastiest, rude, meanest things I can possibly say, and I'll write it to somebody, but I'll just write it in my journal. Just to start getting that emotion to process, start understanding what I need and why the anger is there in the first place, why it's all bound up. If it's about breaking things, I might just like maybe take some small thing and that doesn't feel like it's too wasteful and break it, see how I feel, and see if I can expand to something bigger.
Yeah, a lot of times anger is in many instances a result of a boundary being transgressed. Like it's the desire to get things away, to get things out of your like physical space. So there's probably some sort of trigger where maybe a person or a circumstance or some aspect of society or your upbringing, whatever, is making you feel like invalidated or disrespected. There's some sort of boundary that wasn't clearly communicated or established, whether that's, communicated person to person or just clear in yourself, like in your own mind, in your own, you know, your own sense of space. Um, so really getting clear on what boundary was transgressed, in what way, can oftentimes clarify and start to direct or like channel the anger into a more proactive, direction. And sometimes that boils down to like having a difficult conversation with somebody who betrayed your trust. Maybe that's recognizing that a certain condition in your life is not satisfactory to you, and making some sort of change.
Like first steps for anger can be a lot of fun. It's like hit things, put on some boxing gloves, go ham. Or, I've had a lot of success with just getting people to take cushions or pillows and just like hammer the crap out of it and shout and scream, go to a rage room, which, that's still on my list. But that's the first step. But like we ultimately kind of want to move past that stage of, every time I'm angry, I got to smash something or like go through all the fuck variations, like fuck you, fuck off, fuck's sake, whatever it is, I it feels good in the moment because we are having that outlet for our anger, but like ultimately, you want to get past that to the point where it's like, okay, yeah, again, when we're talking about grounding, it's like, can I handle this anger? Can I just sit there and go, yeah, like I'm feeling this anger in my body, and like you were saying, just direct it and just say, hey, like don't do that. Like no, like you upset me. This is something that's not cool, and it becomes like this proactive thing that we can use and direct, and you know we don't have to just cancel our lives, go to the gym, and just like smack the bag for like an hour. Otherwise, you know, otherwise we'll go and do it to someone who might actually take, you know, offense at being pounded around. And, you know, ultimately as well, you know, I know plenty of guys who use, let's say, jujitsu or boxing as their anger outlet, and it's great. It's better than having nothing, and it's a great first step. But if you don't let them train for a little bit, or like, you know, work with life takes them out of it, and you see them starting to bubble up again, it's like, right, there's someone who's got an outlet, but they don't have a control over that anger. And, you know, ultimately it's like learning to ground and just be with it rather than just having to like explode every now and again, even if it's in a kind of functional, healthy way. Like we still want to get past that. But yeah, punch a bag, not a person, unless that person is paying for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, safe ways right off the bat, and like just yelling, you know, in your house, in your car, you know, just yelling, swearing, yelling at imaginary people, you know, like whatever's going on, taking a pillow and just punching the shit out of it, you know, if you can't get to the gym, just punching your mattress. Yeah, don't punch your walls in your house because you break some bones and hurt yourself. But yeah, pillows, mattress, you know. I like Nick's idea, like, hey, got something that you don't really care about that's small and inexpensive and feel like smashing it, smash it. You know, there's the rage rooms. Rage rooms are awesome. And then of course your combat sports, right? And then just sports in general, just letting that anger out. But I feel like that question is kind of, hey, this just came up. I can't get to the gym. I can't go do sports right now. I'm in my place and I'm furious. What can I do? Right. Well, that's where punching that mattress, that pillow, you know, breaking some small like dish or cup or something, just whatever, something insignificant, just to kind of express that and get that out is one of the safer ways right away to handle this.
Yeah, I also wanted to give like an example of like generalized anger too, right? Because a lot of times there's like a specific event that can trigger us, but like for guys that are like generally holding anger, and we see it a lot in um, guys who are just resentful at women as a whole, right? With no real like grounded trigger, they just hold that resentment. A lot of times it's about narrowing down like what specifically you need that you're not getting, uh, and using the anger to proactively search for that. So take an example, a guy is mad at all women in the world, all 4 billion of them, and then narrow that down to just like inquire, ask why. Maybe he's mad at, you know, his mother growing up, right? Brings it in a little smaller, like, why is he mad at his mother? Oh, because he didn't get the right, you know, maybe sense of like nurturing and permission that he needed. Cool. That's a great place to start. Now go seek that out, right? We don't want to just sit in um, like a pool of undefined anger. We want to actually like be proactive, hone it down. Like there's a thing we're not getting right now that we really want, or else the anger wouldn't be there. And let's go for that thing.
Yeah, it's like you're in the deep end of the pool and you need to move to the shallow end to figure out like where your footing is.
Yeah, let it clarify.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see a lot with like very like consistently angry people where, you know, and there are some exceptions, but most of the time you're going to see like underneath that anger, there's usually like a fear or a sadness or something that the anger is much more pleasant to feel than, you know, the sadness. And yeah, a lot of the time it's familial.
Mhm. Ooh, this one's interesting. Kind of like relating to shadow stuff, shadow desires. How do I determine which impulses should be owned and which ones might just be harmful?
Hmm.
Which impulses should be owned and which should be what?
Which ones might just be harmful?
I mean, I'm gonna just go out on a limb and say, like, kind of seen echoes of this with everyone like sitting here, and it's like, firstly, you kind of have to define what we mean by owning, and like owning is not the same thing as acting out, but because there's definitely stuff you don't want to act out, but like owning the emotion, like understanding it and saying, yeah, like I have this experience in my body and I have like these associated images or whatever. That's kind of owning it and just like claiming that kind of sense of responsibility over it. And I feel like when you own that emotion, you have that choice of like, I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do this. When we start kind of pushing it away and denying like it's there, that's when you start getting the neighbors saying, oh, but he was such a nice guy, always kept himself and, never said boo to a goose. And, I'm not going to like list various things that, I've thought about, felt, like played out in my head because shit gets dark really, really quickly. But, you know, there's nothing you can't own. There's a lot of stuff that you should not be acting out, but, you know, ownership of like violent thoughts is I think is really misunderstood. Like ownership of like hatred or judgment, things like that. Stuff that if we were to act out, definitely would be like castigated by society, right? But you can't really trust someone who can't handle their emotions because whatever dark shit you're feeling, guaranteed that like 99% of people on this planet have felt exactly the same thing as you. Like there's a lot of dark stuff going through our minds, and like the more you run away from it, the more power it has over you. So don't run from that shit. Don't do it, but don't run away from it.
Yeah, there's a difference between I have an impulse and I'm not going to act on it versus I have an impulse and I shouldn't have that impulse because a person like me is bad if I have that impulse, right? The first one, very simple. That's kind of where we want to be. Like you can just desire to do stuff all day and choose not to do it. That's fine. There's probably a lot of things that you do desire and you do just casually choose, right? And then if you're the second guy, which is a bunch of shame and programming and guilt and all of these reasons why you're a bad person, this like it's kind of like creating like intellectual or like judgmental distance between you and actually feeling the thing. So like if we just remove some of that shame, remove some of that guilt, remove some of that judgment, you can actually get into the contact with the feeling and get like find peace with that first. And that gives others a whole lot more like emotional permission to feel the things that they feel around you. Gives yourself a whole lot more capacity to like handle challenges, handle like emotional fluctuations, like handle just wanting those desires, right? So like there is benefit other than the desire itself to owning and letting yourself feel that desire.
This one's very similar to the last question to me in that, like if you've got these urges, right? Like you feel yourself wanting to, like let's just go for something like semi-dark is like to hurt other people or, you got off a bad day at work, you want to hurt your boss, you want to hurt your terrible shitty coworkers, something like that. And you're just constantly having thoughts like this. That's just like the impulse, right? That's like the animal impulse, the body impulse. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like the first thing that's like Alex said, like all you guys are saying is like it's super important to not judge that. It's like, yeah, of course, like it's very natural in the animal kingdom to like if your boundaries are crossed to just like kill the other guy, right? Like to just protect your territory, kill the other guy, handle the situation, we're done, and go about your day. And the thing that we can do as humans is like make it, we can think and strategize, and we can make this actually like more complex. We have other ways of handling this and dealing with this situation. And so to let in the urge that that's okay, it's natural, it's normal, gives you the opportunity to just relax back into it, feel it, and kind of ask more, like Dave said, like go from the deep end where it's just almost overwhelming to the shallow end and find out what do you need? Like, is there something you needed to say to your boss? Like, did they just like bulldoze you in some negotiation and you didn't say what you needed to say or something like that? Or do you just have no leverage at the place you work in this scenario, and maybe you need to find yourself some more options so that you don't feel completely trapped at some dead end company where they don't respect you, right? So there's a lot of options here, and being able to like take your time to feel that out, say it's okay that you have these urges, and allow those urges to teach you what you're trying to get so that you can meet your own needs in a way that also allows us to live in in a civil society, right?
You read that question one more time, Alex.
How do I determine which impulses should be owned and which ones might just be harmful?
I mean, part of that question already answers itself, because if it's harmful, it's harmful. I mean, there's no getting around that. You know, you don't want to have harmful impulses. If you do have harmful impulses, well, like you really need to get some help. Yeah, I mean, as far as which ones you hold on to, like on a primal level, like maybe the impulse of anger, maybe the impulse of lust a little bit, right? To be driven to go out and to do stuff, to accomplish things, have it being the driving force behind your success. Those impulses are good. The impulses to love, to be available, the impulses to help, to be the impulse to, you know, be a solid masculine guy. Those are all the ones that you want to hold on to. But when it comes to harmful impulses, well, I mean, there's so many harmful impulses, you know, we could sit here all day and talk about harmful impulses. If it's harmful, you don't want to act on it, you don't want to keep it, you want to get rid of it. And you want to look at why this harmful impulse keeps coming up. There's a reason there somewhere. Most likely from childhood. You know, as we're discovering a lot of work that we do, and you know, psychiatry does, is from ages 0 to 7-ish, where subconscious mind is still forming. And so those impulses are baked in there pretty deep. And it takes a lot of time working with professionals and coaches that know what they're doing to get that unwired for you, so that those impulses aren't harmful anymore, so that you can actually use that impulse as a positive. But yeah, if you've definitely got harmful impulses, like, yeah, you don't want to hang on to those. You want to definitely get some help with that.
I do want to add like a caveat there, is that like, unless those impulses are in response to like protecting yourself, protecting your family, protecting, right? Because like there's like, when it comes to, you know, tribal dynamics, when it comes to like we haven't transcended war, we haven't transcended violence as a species, so it's like we still have to be able to protect ourselves. And that I think is different. And so in which case, like, harmful impulses are probably a very healthy thing for you personally, right? Or for any of us personally.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, if there's a threat to your life, yeah. And you have bad impulses, well, those are good.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of this is about, the core emotions behind a lot of what we're experiencing. And, there are no bad emotions. They're like, at the purest level, like things like fear are very, very functional. Like anger is very functional. Like if you're not afraid of that tiger, there's something wrong with you and you're not going to live very long. If you're not angry when someone steals your food, then you're going to be pushed around and you're going hungry and you're not going to live very long. Like everything's got a function. It's just when we get out of relationship to it and, we feel like, yes, we probably should beat the crap out of that guy because he looked at us funny. That's probably not great. Or if we're afraid of like everything, and that's probably not good either. So yeah, when it starts getting into very weird specific stuff down the line, like, oh yeah, I have this one particular image in my head, and like you guys were saying, there's a need there that's not being met. There's something going on underneath it, and absolutely, like find out what that is. If you need to get professional help or a nice padded room, whatever it is, but like yeah, take that stuff seriously, but at the same time, in and of itself, having the thought does not make you the same as, if you would carry out that thought. So, yeah, if you can't tell the difference, definitely get help.
Yeah. All right. There's a few dating questions, but they all kind of hint at the same thing. Like there are a lot of questions of how do I, find stability, things like that. Um, but a core thing that guys have been asking is like, how do I develop more of a sense of my own value so that, dating becomes easier. I don't take rejection as hard. Um, it doesn't feel like a massive power dynamic battle between men and women, right? How do we build more of that sense of intrinsic value, self-image, especially as it relates to dating?
I mean, that starts with self-validation. It starts with good self-esteem. That's where that all starts. I mean, if you can't value yourself, no woman's going to. And we see this over and over and over again in the world of dating. The guys that struggle with dating, they're always looking for external validation. They very rarely have any type of internal validation. No one has ever told them they're good enough. They have been told from a young age they're not good enough. And that just continues to be a reality, unfortunately. And so, it involves working with coaches to start finding the value in yourself and in learning how to value yourself, all the attributes that you have, all the amazing experiences you've had, the gifts you have, the abilities, right? Many times over, I've worked with guys who are like, yeah, I don't have any value, and I come to find out that there's some like high level gamer that competes competitively, or they or are some high end musician or filmmaker that they're really well known for what it is that they're doing, and they just don't feel like they're worth anything because to them that stuff typically comes so easy that they don't see any value in it. It's just part of the everyday experience. And I get that. But whether it's easy for you or not, the value in yourself and who you are is still there. It doesn't matter if you have just a natural talent for something or you've worked for 20 years to develop the talent. There's still value in who you are as a man. There's value in the way that, you take care of your body, the food that you eat, the people you interact with, the lifestyle that you want to live, the type of woman you want to be with. How do you interact with your family, right? There's value in all of that. There's value in how you see the world, you know, and value in the way you dream about the things that you want to see and do and experience. So when guys come and say, hey, yeah, I don't have that much to bring to the table, and we start digging in just a little bit, like we've got a laundry list of attributes that are highly attractive to women. It's just that men have not been told that this is attractive. So
Yeah, guys have so much like value, like so many attractive traits. Like we see guys all the time, all the time. They're super interesting to talk to. They've got like they've got great skills. They take great care of themselves, and then they're just like their perception is in some black box of like some memory from childhood or early life that it's just like they're not good enough, and like that's something I would say that like we're particularly good at is just like repping that button. Like you're fucking awesome. Like you're actually great. And then like look, see how valuable she sees this. Like actually check the environment and see that like when you are here and when you show up, people love you. People love, which is different than like a validation. It's just kind of letting recognize that like, hey, like we like this. People like this. You're valuable, so that you can kind of like shine with that, you know.
Yeah, I see it a lot in just how we're like this culture is raised, like especially like Western American culture. It's very problem solving focused, especially for guys. Like it's almost like we derive our value based on how many problems we can solve and how efficiently and well we can solve them. And that's been implanted in us through school system, through our upbringings, right? So we end up taking that same problem solving approach and then just turning it inward on ourselves. So we're a bunch of dudes walking around like looking for all of these problems that exist within ourselves, right? Just doing the total opposite of the thing we should be doing, which is valuing attributes of ourselves, valuing the experience that we're having, the experiences that we're having with people, right? So we're using the problem solving approach when we really don't need to. So it's like, we'll do this a lot with guys, have them just look in the mirror at themselves and just see what about them they value, almost as if they're looking at someone else, right? Because a lot of times it's easier for us to see like, oh, like she's hot, she's clearly valuable, he's smart, he's clearly valuable, but to look at ourselves in the same way and just be like, oh, that person is actually quite caring in the mirror looking back at me.
yeah, a good exercise to do with this is get around some peers that you really trust and you've spent some time with, and ask your peers, hey, what do you find unique? What do you find valuable? What do you find interesting about me? Because I'm having a hard time finding and understanding my value in this world as a man. And so when you do that, and now you have all of this feedback, it's undeniable that you have value. So, you know, if you struggle with that, get around people that can give you really solid feedback on, it doesn't even have to be solid feedback, but just feedback on, oh, well, I love that you're this. I love that you're that. I like when you do this. I like when you do that. That's how you're going to start to see how valuable you really are.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Like I know, like personally speaking, like hanging around with you, Dave, and you, Nick, and Alex has been like really helpful, like for me to be able to see like what I actually bring to the table. Because Alex, like you were saying, I have that problem solving mindset. And the one thing about that problem solving mindset, another thing about it, I should say, is I you're kind of rewarded for having more problems. So, you'll always find another problem to fix, whether it's, that thing your parents didn't say to you when you were a kid, or that one time that girl laughed at you when you did that thing, or whatever it is. You'll always find some other reason to be traumatized. So that's huge. But yeah, like absolutely, there's such a huge difference between looking at external accomplishments for that, sake of self-validation. And it's something that like I really got confused for a while. Dave, you were like instrumental in helping me with this, which was, what is my own personal satisfaction? What is like the personal sense of achievement I get from the things I've done? Like not necessarily, oh, I've done this thing which matters to other people, so look at the value I have in the eyes of others. It's like, what did I like feel like, what is my sense of achievement from doing this thing? And there's so many things that like I discounted my entire life just because, like Dave, you're saying, like, there's a lot of stuff that just came easily to me or naturally to me. And you know, going from thinking like, oh yeah, this thing is so easy for me, it has no value, to, oh yeah, like I do this thing as easily as breathing. Other people really struggle with it. Like, how valuable is that to them? It's, that's huge. So like all the things you guys were saying, plus that sense of, what is that sense of value like in myself? What does it feel like to be valued? And for so many guys, that's not something they know how to find within themselves. Like that sense of just like, yeah, I'm enough just sitting on my own, doing nothing, like not having to perform like we were saying earlier to make other people like us, not having to like, try and do this or do something. It's like, yeah, I can just show up, be myself, and most people will like me. Some people will hate me, and that's great. Like I usually don't like the guys who don't like me, so it works out pretty nicely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say too, like the brain is so easily influenced by thinking, like your thinking and your mental models and your priming. Like old stories that you'll tell about yourself that you replay in your head over and over again. It like to the degree that like if you go out into the world and you are holding these stories and these reminders of yourself that like people don't like you, people don't value you, they don't care about you, you will literally look for the people that don't value you, and you will look for the part in people that might value you that don't value you. Like you will pull it out of them because they'll just start acting. It's fascinating. It's like just do the whole like look for yellow car, prime your brain, and you'll start seeing a bunch of yellow cars. Like prime your brain with people hate me and they don't like me, and you will start seeing that in everybody. Prime your brain with like people love me and they want to cheer me on and they want to help me and they want to do a bunch of beautiful sexual things with me.
Yeah, reticular activation system is a very real thing.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you're discussing there, Nick, is the reticular activation system. And you gave great examples. Yellow car, right? You'll see 50 yellow cars in a day and you've never seen one in the past month, right? Just because, like you said, your prime reticular activation system to kick in, start up. Oh, there's all the yellow cars, right? There's no better example of this is when you take guys out to approach who think everybody hates them. They will walk up to every single woman that is cold and shut off and a total bitch the entire day until that reality shifts in their mind. And then they're like, oh, well, that was easy. Well, yeah, you were sorting for all the trouble. And so that's what you got instead of sorting for all the available, beautiful women. Like, when I was dating a lot, the only thing that would enter my mind was hot, available women. That's it. That's all I ever thought about. And so that's what I got. And even so much that even the Tinder algorithm, like guys would look at the girls that I would match with and they're like, where the hell are these girls coming from? We don't get these girls on our side. It's because I had trained the algorithm. I will only look at these types of women. And so it started sending more and more and more to me which was crazy. So it's all up here, guys. Like whatever you want. Yes, are you going to have to surmount stories and fears and past traumas to get to this new place that you want to operate in? Whether it's dating, whether it's business, making money, feeling more masculine. Yeah, you're going to have to surmount those stories. That's the only way we grow, is through the pain. Everybody wants to sell you an idea that you can get to the next level with no pain, and that's complete bullshit, because you cannot. You might get there, but trust me, when it comes back around to haunt you again, it is going to be a miserable experience.
And you do have to be able to play like along those lines. You do have to be able to consistently remind yourself, like you will inevitably, even if you have that great like hot open women mindset, you will inevitably talk to somebody who's going to like try to shake you down, right?
Totally.
Somebody's going to cross your path. You're going to hear it. You can do your best to like avoid it in general, but you're going to hear it. And if your mind, the second somebody says you're a creep, the second somebody says, you know, like, don't ever talk to people, like, you shouldn't be talking to women or like this ever. You shouldn't be talking about sex. The second somebody says that, and your mind immediately spirals down into this like shame pattern, and you can't get yourself back out, like that's, you know, that's a sign that we need to like strengthen your capacity to just invoke those feelings of that primer in yourself, right? That focus.
And
Yeah, there's so many people who have such a strong sense of like rejecting positive feedback that they'll go, they'll have a great series of conversations with a whole bunch of people, and they'll come back and say, like, nobody liked me, like, no one was willing to talk to me. And you can even give them the facts, and they'll just be like, no, like, they just
yeah,
didn't like me. Like, they were having this experience, and, you know, everyone else will tell them the other thing, and they'll just not see it. And like one exercise, like, you know, I used to do was write down those positive experiences, or write down like anything positive like I could find during the day, like any positive feedback, even if I didn't believe it. And at first, like I had such a hard time believing that, you know, a positive experience was in fact a positive experience. Like half the time I couldn't remember stuff because like we're saying, my mind would just shut them off. And so it would take, it used to take me like half an hour, like to find three things that went well with my day, or three positive experiences when I first started doing it. And you know, that was an eye opener for me. And then after a while, I just stopped doing it because it was just getting boring, because there was so many things I had to write down that were going well. And like that's the time to stop. Not when it's like, oh yeah, I can't think of anything good that happened, because something good happened. You're just not seeing it.
yep.
Do you have any more questions? I think there's more on the list, but they're, yeah, go ahead and take a look.
I'm pretty good with what we got so far.
Yeah, that feels like a
Been
good,
pretty
good
good, yeah.
place to end. Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Plus, I'm sitting here in pain, like sitting kills.
Yeah.
I've just been like having these like